Coming at you solo for the second week in a row. Where's Charles? Well, speaking of where's Charles, where's my leads? Today, we're going to talk about how to bootstrap your franchise sales and what should be your process of doing so. Coming up next. So we're running into this quite often, and probably more often than we should. We have very large sales goals, but not the capital to help us hit those numbers. And so the question at hand is, how can you bootstrap franchise sales? And most things in most franchise brands started from a bootstrapping mentality. There are a few brands that come out of the gates and say, we'll invest the capital it takes to go achieve said goal. But majority of brands have to find a way to uncover rocks and find wins because they are not flush with cash. I'm going to give you a flush with cash scenario. There's a brand that we started working with, 5 years ago. Private equity backed, got in a room. The CEO said, I want 50 deals next year. I said, okay, you have 4 open locations, proof of concept on those 4, haven't franchised, you're going after a high net worth individual. What is the option here? I said, all right, back of the napkin, we need $2.5 million to spend on franchise marketing to get you the deal volume that you're looking to spend. Now, to most, if I said go spend $2.5 million, you would pause. What I did with him, and it wasn't overly challenging, he was actually really bought into the scenario, was first we looked at the deal value, which I've encouraged many franchisors to do. Understand what is the value of each deal. This will make you feel confident and comfortable with the amount of money that you're spending. So we worked through the deal value and noticed that each deal is going to be worth about $1 million cash to the business, plus whatever they're going to get on an exit. So at $1 million, I said, we're going to spend $50,000 per deal in franchise marketing. Doesn't that make sense? He goes, all day long. The second thing we did is we said, what's the cost to get one of these things open? He said, roughly $3 million. And so, for the basically the same cost to open up a unit, he was comfortable with the idea of spending $2.5 million on franchise marketing. Now, the other truth of this is eventually we ran out of areas to spend in. We were maximizing the budget, the spend was going, and the snowball effect happened, and they awarded 71 deals in their first year of operations. That ended up not being the challenge. The challenge then was getting units open, which I'm going to jump into that in a second on how to bootstrap your franchise sales. So you're coming to the table, you're setting your sales goal for next year, and I say you're going to need $25,000 per deal in franchise marketing to achieve the goal on average. Now, the numbers are dependent on your brand. What's your unit level economics like? What does profitability look like? What's the stability of your leadership? What's your point of differentiation in the marketplace with your product? How does validation look? But roughly speaking, $25,000 is that number. Now, in the broker community that exists today that are accelerating franchise sales, that is one way you can bootstrap your franchise marketing, but you got to understand the process it's going to take to get lift within that community. You have all these brands that are saying, hey, broker, I'm over here, or hey, broker, I'm over here, and they're incentivizing the franchise broker to now go push their deals. So when they're pushing these deals, they're doing so by waiving higher fees or commissions in front of the franchise broker. And now here's the beauty of that as it relates back to bootstrapping. When you're commissioning on deals, you're paying for performance. Therefore, you're not cash out of pocket. So it is a form of bootstrapping. Where you're really going to need cash in those relationships is, one, to equip the brokers with the right tools to actually sell your franchise. Because you got to understand, if they're out there talking to Joe Smith, and Joe Smith doesn't know anything about your brand, they have to rely on that franchise broker to educate them before they're handed off as a lead over to you. So you need to invest in the tools or the education or the portal that you can give to the broker so that they're equipped to now go sell your brand. 2, you got to be very creative in how you're commissioning them, because all franchise deals are not created equal. And unfortunately, you're not playing based on the strength of your business opportunity. You're playing based on the strength of your commission structure. And that creates a complexity in the model. And then 3, I would say you want to budget for relationship building, that if Nick's out there as a franchise broker and is going to help push your business, then you got to equip Nick with the right tools so that Nick can actually be successful and go sell your business on your behalf. But to get Nick excited about your business, you got to build a relationship with Nick. And so relationship building, material to help facilitate the sale, and then the structure of your commissions end up being a way to do this. Relatively low capital out of pockets, high payout per deal. But again, we're going through the exercise of how to bootstrap your franchise sales. That's an easy place to play. I'm going to take a step backwards. Most brands, if you look at your four walls, and four-wall marketing could be the billboard on your truck. It could be the story that you're telling within your unit. It could be the back of a receipt. It could be what message exists in the bathroom. It could be the bags that you hand out. It could be the service flyer that you leave when you're done. What is the story that it tells, and does it educate the buyer that franchising even exists? The easiest way to bootstrap your franchise sales is to look at all the touch points that you already have with human beings that are not franchise owners of your brand, and you see that as an opportunity to educate them that your business opportunity even exists. So if you're really bootstrapping, there are things that you're spending money on or time on. It could be social media, it could be newsletters, it could be mailers, it could be community events. Wherever you're already spending cash, don't put that into a bucket by itself. When all of your marketing efforts are siloed, it actually increases your cost per deal because you're spending on all these things to create buzz or noise about your business. And some of those things aren't telling the story of what is the value of being a franchisee within your system. And so you got to think through, like, what am I already spending money on? People, places, things, and how can I influence those things or use those platforms to also sell the fact that I am indeed a franchise. On the bootstrapping side, I advise a lot of franchise brands. Let's say the goal is 10. You're going to need $250,000 franchise marketing budget to get those 10 deals. I don't advise brands to go put $250,000 of cash to the side. I encourage a rolling budget, because what happens is, let's say it's $250,000 that you're going to spend over the course of 2024. That tends to get spread evenly throughout, and therefore it doesn't allow for variance in activity. And so let's just say, for instance, it's September 7th right now. Let's say in the first 7 days of September, you've awarded 2 deals. And in every other month, you've only awarded 1 at most. Well, then if it's me, I probably increase my spend in September to push down the pedal and announce that we've had signings. When you look at a signing, and if you were to create a circle around it to say, what is the opportunity around the signing, you're really looking for what are the opportunities within that state. Like, a lot of people work within the confines of a state. So you've signed a deal in Indiana, you put out a release that says you've signed that deal, you increase your ad spend in Indiana, you're trying to create a supply and demand issue. Doesn't cost you a ton of money, and you're leveraging the fact that you've actually executed a deal. That's where you start putting more of your juice on your moments, and that's how you elevate the rolling budget. Another thing I would do on a rolling budget is I would reward your budget with more budget every time you close a deal, so that you're filling it up. That your budget isn't really your final budget, it's a starting amount that you're going to spend on lead generation to build that process. Now, in the bootstrapping world, I've said this many times before, you also have to look at your foundational elements. I talked about the 4 walls, but the foundational elements also ends up being what's the message that you see when you land on the website. Over the last week, I probably had half a dozen lead generation calls, marketing calls with brands. Out of the half a dozen, none of them had a Why You, Why Now positioned on the website. And so I like to look at what is the offering that you're providing, and are you clearly articulating what that offering is, so that if you go bootstrap as much as humanly possible, then when they land into your website, they clearly understand what the messaging is. The last thing that I'm going to say, and you see, FRANX is shorter when I'm in charge solo. I mean, I still talk just as much. It's just I'm getting the point across faster. Last thing I'll say is franchisee, incentivizing them to be a part of your lead team. This, I would say, should be done in 2 to 3 parts. The two main parts are, how do you reward a franchisee if they give you a referral? Most of the time, if I took out all of the brands that have incentives, it's like $2,500 if you get us a lead that closes. Yet we're willing to pay that broker who we have no relationship with, who really doesn't care about our brand, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. And I'm not saying pay cash necessarily to a franchisee, but think of a way that you could say, thank you for helping us grow, because the best thing in franchise sales is franchisees. Franchisees sell franchises. And if you said, and I'm thinking creatively in this moment, let's say you gave them $5,000 cash, you paid for their travel to your franchise conference, you gave them a $10,000 marketing credit that they're able to access to drive sales to their unit in the next year, and you waived their franchise fee, or all but $1,000 of it, or $5,000 for it, so they could actually convert the cash into an additional unit. Now you're giving them the tools to continue to grow their business within you, which I've said this many times before, growing fatter is a lot easier than growing taller when it comes to franchising. Driving more sales for your franchisees will actually drive them to buy more units. And so step one of the two things that I think is super important is asking yourself why you're willing to pay a franchise consultant that has no relationship with your brand $40,000, but you're only willing to give someone who cares passionately about your business, has invested their life savings into your business, and has your back $2,500. And so I think that's a critical element. The other thing, the two that's a must, is oftentimes it's not used as a leverage point, but if you have franchisees, you have people that have gone through a process and said yes. And so that's a huge value back to you, because they know what their psyche was. They know what their triggers were. They know what they were getting tripped up on. They have all of this. And so because they have the knowledge base, I hear franchise advisory councils or marketing councils, but why not build a collective of people that your development team can call on and be able to ask these franchisees, what should we be doing? And I think they have answers because they are franchisees. They went through this process. They might have some ideas to help accelerate things, which again, it's all about bootstrapping. They might have the tools. The last thing, and I said maybe 3, is to involve your franchisees in the sales process. It's not validation calls. It's more like a meet the Z call, which actually does turn into a validation call. And you could incentivize them. You could give them $500 gift card for helping you in this process or something. Maybe $500 is too much. But like if I'm thinking through a trade show, I think a trade show with franchisees present give you the best shot at winning. So can you involve your franchisees in the sales process? So that's what I would do. If you're going to bootstrap franchise sales and you're going to find ways to create energy, buzz, structure, energy, then you got to go through the basics and find those places. I will say the number one thing that a brand asset can be to help a brand accelerate their growth is capital. It's cash. That sometimes a business that is not the strongest franchise business can still get significant lift by deploying cash and making sure that they are the loudest brand in the stadium saying, hey, I'm here. Come look at me. But I will say majority of brands don't have the cash, and majority of brands, for whatever reason, are unwilling to put the cash in, even though the return is great. I mean, I'll say even my mindset in our business, when I look at our marketing structure, I know the point of profitability with a brand. I know what a brand could be potentially worth to us. I know that it costs far less to grow with a client than to go get a new one. And therefore, that swings my decisions when it comes to marketing our business, including launching our first franchise summit, which is a very interactive mastermind where I'm confident we have 110 people coming to it, that all 110 are going to walk away with something that is going to grow them in Q4 and something that's going to grow them next year. And then they're going to come back to camp the next year and talk about that. So that's that. Bootstrapping, you can do it. You can be smart with it. You don't need to have the capital if you don't have it. We can figure things out. That's FRANX solo, me talking for 60 minutes and 30 seconds. See ya.